This episode of the Better Every Shift podcast is sponsored by MagnaGrip, America's choice for clean air. Eliminate 100% of airborne toxins from within the station with MagnaGrip. Learn more at magnagrip.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Better Every Shift podcast. My name is Aaron Zamzow. I'll be your host. I have a very, very special guest, one that's near and dear to me because Dr. Sara Jahnke has not only a good friend, a mentor, a colleague, she was the very first guest on this podcast 130 some episodes ago. And I will tell you one of the most memorable things. By the way, welcome.
Thanks.
Dr. J, always good to see you. We've already had a podcast behind the scenes. I think we should always air that, and hopefully someday that'll come out because it's always entertaining. But I don't know if you remember, you're very passionate, especially when we're talking about firefighter health, wellness, and safety, and research. And you had said something about this SHIT needs to stop because the data is telling us. And then you looked up, you go, can I say that on this podcast? And I'm like, absolutely. So from that point on, we've had little, swears. And every time someone kind of does and asks that question, I'm like, Dr. Jahnke set and paved the way,
Right.
Just like you are in so many other things in the fire service. You're one of the few that dedicated your career to this, like Dr. Burgess and Denise Smith. And so I want to first say thank you for all your dedication. And for those that don't know about all the different things that Sara has done for the fire service, first and foremost, she's the director and senior scientist at the Center for Fire Rescue and EMS Health Research at the National Development Research Institute. You are the Science to the Station's president and founder,
Yeah.
I want to say, right? And you're really just, what I love about you so much is that you've dedicated your career to saying, this is what the science tells us. This is what you guys are doing. This is what we need to do to make that change and really implement and translate the science into practice. I mean, that has been your devotion. And you've also served as a principal investigator, co-investigator for several studies funded by Department of Homeland Security, National Institute of Health, American Heart Association. And again, like all of that kind of comes together as this theme that says, here's the science. We need to translate it and put it into, you guys got to start listening to it and put it into practice. And then I think, really where you're at now is, here are some of the institutions and organizations that are doing that, right? Like that's kind of where you've gone.
Yep. Yes. Next question.
Yeah. Well, let's start with how the heck you been and what are you working on currently? And I know the last year has been a challenge a little bit, like it has been, just trying to feel out what's going on. So give us a little update.
It's I've been working a lot. I am happy to report that FEMA research and development grants, the NOFO came out for those. So the last 2 weeks has been getting FEMA grants in. So working on, I'm actually really excited about our application this time. And it's looking at existing data sets in cancer, cardiovascular disease, mental health and injury. And really there's so much great data out there, but trying to find the folks that are going to it's a lot to clean the data, analyze the data and publish it. So we've got one out there on that. And then we're hoping to disseminate a few other things that we found. But yeah, it's been, I'm excited that FEMA is still funding research this year, or at least had the call for proposals. So that part was a good one. And then I also spent some time trying to get the advocating for the National Firefighter Registry to get back up and running. So that has been, as things have shifted.
Which it is.
It is.
The cancer registry is back up. Yep.
There's still all the people aren't necessarily in place that were there before. So what we do with it eventually is a little bit, I think, iffy, but it is up and running. And I think I just saw Kenny 2 days ago. And I think there have been 2,000 more. We're at 26,000 firefighters in that.
Okay. Yeah. So if people are listening to this, they need to register.
Yes.
Because this, I think, is also a beacon and an indicator for the fire service to fund a lot more. So if we're stepping up and saying, hey, yeah, it's quick, it's easy, we could do this. I
Yeah.
think a lot of other things will kind of fall into place. So we'll leave the links in the show notes for that. We had Dr. Kenny Fent on, great interview about
Love that guy.
what really happens with that data and why it's so pivotal and essential for us. And I know that you support that and been involved with that. And you really have turned into not only like you're a researcher, but you're also an advocate. And you were recently on NPR, kind of being an advocate for the fire service and an expert. And so tell me a little bit about that. What was that experience like?
It was cool. So it was interesting because it was around the time that the National Firefighter Registry was down. And there was a lot of conversation about getting it back up, and who do we need to reach out to legislatively, and kind of a lot of stuff behind the scenes. And it's funny because or not funny, but I think it's interesting because it's easy to think like, oh, that kind of stuff, like it always comes back around. Things like always work out. And they don't without a lot of people pushing. Like what got that back up and running, and what got that like as a commentary during a Senate hearing was the advocacy and like reaching out and making sure people were aware of what was going on. So we filmed it, or we audio taped it in a way that like we had a version where if the registry relaunched, they would put these words in, and if it didn't, then we would put these. So it was, but it's a great group of people. It's actually first guy that contacted me was had been a wildland guy initially. And so he was super invested in the National Firefighter Registry and then became a reporter for NPR. So as all the registry stuff was like going on, he got involved in that. So it was cool. It's cool to be like, they kept saying like, oh, thanks for being on. And I'm like, thank you for covering this.
Yeah.
Like anytime we get national press on fire service stuff, I'm like, this is huge because it drives public like focus. It drives public, awareness and those types of things. So I think it's important that we have, I think anytime we can get coverage and press and that kind of stuff, it's a good thing for the fire service.
I agree. Even if it's local, anything really helps out. What did you, what was the biggest thing that they were pushing or asking you on that particular program?
That one was just kind of like why the registry matters. So that was the big conversation. Why does the National Firefighter Registry matter? Why does it matter that we have it up? And what can we do with it? Because really, like, honestly, the NFR is going to be the only way to answer some of the questions that we have about cancer in the fire service. Like if you look at what was done by Doug Daniels, NIOSH, 30,000 firefighters, 29,000 firefighters, which is about what the registry is. Amazing. Less than 1,000 of those are women. So like we have to have an approach where we can make sure that we have women involved, and the rate in the NFR so far is higher than that. So some questions, like questions about breast cancer, we just don't really have a great answer for. We can guess based on the mechanistic work, but like it's really not yet. So
we need more sample size. We need more people to step up and do this. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So you've done research on cancer, reproductive health, mental health. Now you're doing a lot of that. Sleep, you're going to start getting into. I asked all of our research this, and I think it's really interesting because there's always a theme, but then there's always just something else that comes from this question is now doing all that research. What are a couple things that you want to make sure that you look at every firefighter you meet, you want to just kind of shake them and go, do you understand this?
Right? Okay. Like, the list is so long.
We got time.
No, you know what? The big things right now, my big things right now, sleep is actually at the top of my list at the moment. And partly because like I get distracted easily. So my shiny object that I'm focused on right now is sleep. But I do think like that is short sleep, circadian rhythm disruption is a risk factor for cancer, for cardiovascular disease, mental health. Like if you look at Laura Barger did some awesome work, and she found that people who were in the range of clinical concern for sleep disorder versus those that weren't, like double the risk of all sorts of things like diabetes, hypertension, triple the risk, and almost 4 times the risk. I think it was 3.81 for depression and anxiety. Like not getting good sleep is such, and I didn't used to be a believer. Like I freely admit the first time someone asked me that question, I'm like, oh yeah, sleep's important. But are you gross deconning on the fire ground? If you look at the relative risk of interrupted sleep and circadian rhythm disruption compared to even fire ground exposure, like it's higher. Like it's not the silver, what is it? Not the silver bullet, but it's a bronze, I would say. Like I think it's a thing. And so I think that's one of the first things that I would talk about. Another one is that we got to be having conversations about mental health. And it's not just, oh, you got to watch out for PTSD. I think that in the fire service, we have to have a focus on prevention, building resources and programs before you need them. We're doing a study right now on disaster response. I just did a meeting here with stakeholders. It was freaking amazing. And we went into the study going, all right, how do you support? How does the IAFF, when their teams deploy, what do they do on the ground in a mass casualty incident and what do you do? Mass casualty, school shooting, and natural disaster. Mm-hmm. What do you do in those moments that helps? And yeah, the pieces in the moment are useful, but man, what they really found was useful was that you had to have the stuff ahead of time, and then you got to make sure you take care of people afterwards. Yeah. So it's been this whole and how do we make sure we have the resources so when the shit hits the fan, which I know I can say that now, yes, when the shit hits the fan and it exceeds your capabilities, when Wendy Norris is responding in Texas and she's got awesome resources down there, when she's like, this is more than our team can handle, who do you call? Who do you know? Who's your phone a friend within the fire service? Because to the person, everyone was like, well, you call, if you need a resource, you call, and they all knew a person to call, but those people are not all on a list somewhere. So how do we make sure we've got a shared list? So that's another one, focus on mental health. And then I think my third, I'm giving myself 3 because I know your podcast is not 24 hours running all the time. My third would be really what we've talked about it doesn't have to be perfect. Do something, do a little bit better than you did yesterday. Something's better than nothing. I think we so often get wrapped up in this, it's so overwhelming. It's so overwhelming. So whether it's cancer prevention, whether it's improving your fitness and nutrition, do something, but we don't have to. Rome wasn't built in a day. It's a very big city and actually was built over several times. So let's do what we can when we can.
Yeah. A good, better. I mean, that's why I think that's one of this kind of strengths of the program is it's got better every shift. Just, I believe in better. I've been saying that a lot lately and people kind of go, that's interesting. I don't believe in perfect. I don't believe in great. Yes. I believe in better because everybody starts at a different level. And I think every organization, and you and I have had this great conversation. Some organizations are like, well, we are so far behind the 8 ball that we don't even know where to begin. Well, begin with gross decon. Begin with getting everybody a second set of gear. Begin with, when you look at individual levels, begin with hydration, begin with exercise, begin with going to see a counselor once a quarter. All right. Do something every single day just to think about where you can get to that. Cause you'll never get to perfect, especially as we continue to develop research, right?
Right.
Is there something that you found originally from your research that's now changed a little bit that has gotten you mentioned sleep, but is there anything else that stands out and says, I didn't think about that way? Or
sleep is definitely a big one. I underestimated the impact of that. What else have I changed my mind on? I mean, I change my mind kind of on a daily basis. Is the good part about being focused on science is that I can always go with different or more information. I can change, I will say something that I believe today that I might not believe if I read a study that's grossly different tomorrow. I always hold out I can change my mind on that and still be evidence-based. I think that, God, what else have I really changed? I think I underestimated the impact of the group before. I knew it was important, but I think I underestimated the need. Someone recommended one time an intervention for we could just intervene on that person and they can take control. You're shooting yourself in the foot if you do an intervention with one person instead of the crew in a firehouse. Because everyone's gonna bleed over into everyone else. And really if we can harness the power of peer support in the fire service, that is the winning piece.
Yeah.
So I think definitely that. I used to think that, this one's probably good. I used to think in terms of mental health interventions, in terms of evidence-based interventions that we would have to do, that it would be kind of a long and arduous process for some of those things, to treat some of these disorders. We just tested an abbreviated treatment for post-traumatic stress, nightmares, and insomnia, all 3. And it was a 4-day intervention. It was 4 4-hour blocks. what we did, and this was based off the qualitative work, was and at first, like, I'd heard they were doing this with the military, and I'm like, I don't know if it'll work. Like, that's not very much in terms of like treatment.
16 hours to treat
right.
that. Yeah.
Each of them are usually traditionally like 16 hours over 16 weeks for each one. So I'm like, is it going to work? Like, they're showing it, like, let's try it. The outcomes were amazing. In fact, our lead statistician came in. He's like, if we had these outcomes on a drug trial, we'd have to stop it because it's so good. They would want to just start disseminating it. But you know what was cool about it is the intervention was, it's the 4-4-hour blocks. And it's really like, it's not therapy. It's not like, Aaron, tell me about your worst nightmares. It's like, hey, you think about it. They're proven, like written exposure therapy, where you basically can write your nightmare and then rewrite it with a different ending. And you're basically retraining your brain, right? I didn't think it was as possible to retrain your brain as it is. And now we're seeing all these interventions where they're very either biologically based, or like you can monitor, you can scan brains and see that they're working differently. The intervention piece, though, because I talked to people after they did it, and to the person, what we did with it, and I'm so glad we stuck strong to this, because we're having a hard time finding a place for them and doing the structure of it, was you show up the first day around lunchtime. We give you a gift card for food with the rest of each group had got a gift card. They stayed in an Airbnb. So they're all in this big house together. And then we do the sessions. And then the first night they would go out to eat. And then the second day they would go grocery shop and cook together and sit around and play cards. And what they kept saying to the person, you recreated a kitchen table, a safe kitchen table for us to share kind of our experiences. And it made me rethink, because I didn't know, like, honestly, I was a tiny bit skeptical. So I asked a couple of people that I knew that would need the treatment and said, like, please be as honest as possible. And they gave some like, oh, you might adjust this, you might adjust that. But to the person, they're like, the magic was the kitchen table. Like, the magic was you're recreating this opportunity for people to engage and sit around and joke and, make fun of each other and all the things that fire does.
That's where we solve a lot of problems. People just don't, they stay there though, sometimes, unfortunately. But in this case, let's use this as a tool.
Yeah. Totally did not see and did not plan for. Like, a lot of the groups stayed together in terms of like, they stayed connected. They checked in with each other months later. Like, one group met up all traveled to meet up somewhere. Like, I, again, like, underestimated the pull of finding those people.
Well, group and culture you had mentioned, and, you decided to take that into heart and create this thing called Science to the Station. It's really what it is, right? Yeah. It's, and it's grown, and I've known you from day one, because you called and you're like, Zam, will you do this? Help me with this. I'm like, absolutely, sure. So for those that don't know Science Station, give us the elevator pitch on it. I mean, it's not even a pitch. It's like, give us what you were thinking, and you learned quite a bit along this process too.
Yeah. So what it is it's an organization. It's really the network. Like, this is taking my Rolodex, your Rolodex, and making sure that they're all in one spot, right? So creating a network of people who are engaged in health and wellness in the fire service, whether it's a firefighter that's trying to start their own fitness program and get their crew motivated. A lot of folks are now, it used to be that health and wellness fell under safety officer. And now a lot of times safety officer is incident safety, and there's a health and wellness person. So, but who do those people, like, what group does that group join? And we've done a shitty job in the fire service of translating science to practice. Like, we do these studies, we publish on them, and that in the science world, that's your output. In the fire service, like, who's going to read those? And so how do we do a better job of taking the investment that the fire service has done in money and time, through AFG grants, but also through all the people that have participated, and say, all right, here's the deliverable back to you. If you're worried about PFAS in your blood, donate blood and plasma. There's a study out of Australia that says,
we just had Dr. Burgess on. He said plasma, donate blood. And then, obviously you had mentioned earlier but I mean, gross decon.
Yeah.
And wearing your damn mask. Like, those are some simple, usable, tangible, actionable things that really make a huge difference in that, right?
We knew it did. We thought it did. But, like, did we have the numbers to actually prove it? And now we have the numbers to go, you see a 64% decrease in carcinogens on your skin if you use wipes just on the fire ground, like that kind of stuff. I think it points also because there's so much that like, as we focus on health and wellness, there's a lot of like snake oil, like, oh, do this, do that. All you have to do is this. And if we have to push, like, I love how often I hear a conversation and someone's like, well, is there any research behind that? And I'm like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
so,
But
but
usually there is, you just got to listen to it.
right. Well, but and how do you find research, and what is research because you saw it on TikTok, or is sometimes it is, but when you saw it on TikTok, what were they referring to? What was the background? What was the evidence behind it? So yeah.
So you formed Science Station, and we'll leave the link. We want people, and people can still join, correct?
Oh, yeah. We have about 4,000 people that signed up for I just do like email updates. And we also are now on social media, and it's not me because I am not a social media person. In fact, I had to reset my Instagram password because they asked, they're like, can you repost this? And I'm like, I don't know how to do that. So we have that, and we have the email. And then we're launching the members only section, which is like the different work groups that you can be engaged in, but really like getting some stuff that's like a deliverable. Like your department needs a resource. Here's a resource that has Science Station logo. You put your logo, print it, and put it in the toilet stalls.
Yeah. Yep. You've got some great infographics that you've developed through that. Yeah. Now Science Station nonprofit.
Yes.
So you formed it as a nonprofit.
Yeah.
There's also a conference where you have some really good up and edgy speakers coming, I think, in November. Yeah. I may be there for 3 days presenting. So yeah, I'm excited about that. So it's gone from Science Stations, just like this is an idea of how to get the research out to the masses. Please join and help us. And we'll talk about, I call it Nerd Stock and Science Station, your annual conference that's now grown. How many years now? 3?
3. Technically, we did a joint one at the first
FRCE, right? Or with
FDSOA was our first.
Yeah. Okay.
One. We did it like post-con. And then we did Tucson, Arizona. Then we did Emmitsburg, Maryland last year. And this year, Loveland, Colorado, first week in November.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And so I will be in Loveland with you and many of our other nerds, fellow nerds, as we like to call them. But before you got into that, and this has really grown and developed, you and I had a great conversation with one of our work groups. And I think this is a great lesson for leaders. As you said, people love this idea, but it's not growing because of me or because you're taking some ownership in that. And tell me a little about that, because I think everybody needs to hear this.
Yeah, that I'm the single point of failure. Thanks for, let's talk about that.
I'm talking, not the failure part, the growth on the other side. See, this is called better every shift. Yes. So we're talking about the other side.
No, I mean, the cool thing, and like you referred to me as the founder, like technically this came out of a project that we did, a FEMA funded study on COVID and like, what does the fire service need? But it really, and having that funding and the opportunity to build something really just pulled together what so many people had been talking about. Like, how do we get connected? How do we stay connected? So that project, that grant really gave us the opportunity to do this. But the problem I've learned with working with me, which probably some find a little overwhelming, is that we'll go like, oh, let's build this. And then there are all these ideas and we throw around ideas and then it just like falters. And we come up with a great, amazing, here's how we're going to change the world plan. And then my problem, or what ended up being a problem with Science Station, is we had this board, like our board's freaking amazing. Like John Oates is on it from IPSDI. Kepra Jack is kind of the second in command who runs and owns Heart Fit for Duty in Arizona. Like all these like rock star people. And we'd have these great, Denny Compton just joined, which is like, oh,
nice. I think you have Chief Lieb on there as well.
Yes. Lieb. I have Frank Lieb and Frank Lido. Like, are you kidding?
Oh, you got Frank and Frank?
Right. So we just filmed our first Frankly Speaking, and it's me talking to the Franks. It's amazing. But so we have all these people and we come up with these ideas, and I'd be like, okay, follow up, like I'll do this, I'll do that. And I realized like I might have control issues, but I was trying to do all the things and I realized like people were like, well, we started this, but then what happened to it? And I'm like, shit, that was an email, that was 10,000 emails ago. And so we brought on some folks to do, I've actually got this fire chief who retired, who, like, I think the best thing to do is find people just as they're retiring out of the fire service and don't know what to do next, and then grab them and give them a task. And they're like, yes. But it's been amazing, because then he's really like, he's taken over our social media, and he really is like on top of things, and he's coordinating for the groups, and he's giving some structure, and he's always like, what are measurable outcomes that we want to do here? Like, phenomenal stuff. And he checks in with me constantly. He's like, hey, what about this? What about this? And so he can still like get the vision of what we've talked about, but the implementation piece. And I've learned that like there are people who are amazing at implementation, and they're amazing at ideas. And those two do not think are usually the same two people.
No.
Or
You
at
have
least
he's like a day-to-day operations. You're the
Yes.
brain. You're the, hey,
Yes.
can we do it this way? But I think that's a lesson, because we expect a lot out of chiefs and leadership within the fire service. And I have my, I'm particularly difficult sometimes, because I'm like, why don't we just do this, or why don't we do that? I know there's other parts to that, but we throw people in these leadership positions that do HR and now budgets, and we don't have training for that.
Right.
You've been out in the field for 30 years, fighting fires, and so I think, sometimes we have to understand what our restrictions and limitations are, and then put people in the place to excel. And I think you've seen that through the organization now the last probably year and a half, 2 years. And so, I give you a 1,000 compliments for understanding that and seeing that, because you're type A, you're kind of all over the place, you got a lot going on, but in order to just say, you know what, this is a brilliant idea, we got it launched, now I need to kind of release it a little bit and let people get their hands on it to let it grow. And it has grown. How big do you want this to get? Like, what's your pipe dream goal with this?
No, like, there's no limit, right? Like, we're starting to engage people around the world on these topics. And I'm running the community of practice on health and wellness from the World Fire Congress. And I've seen some presentations where I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. I'd never thought of it that way, on like some mental health stuff, or on some, so like, and then I thought, what if we'd had that conversation? And I know like the best time to do it was yesterday. Second best time is to do it now. But like, if we can get all the people having conversations, if we can get all the OC health providers to be able to have conversations, if we can get our clinicians to be able to have conversations, like, because it's those networks too, like the researchers. Can you imagine if any research project had like standard metrics? We're all using the same survey, and so it can be directly comparable. And what if every project, as it was developed for the, or published for the fire service, we had an actionable, like, this is what this means, or here's a summary sheet. And so when you have a question, you don't have to go out and do all the, like, you've got a reference list of all the peer reviewed literature on a topic, and the problem with science is there's not ever one answer to it. Like, it's this, but the answer is always, it depends. But like, what if we give you all the it depends on, and then you can make all these think about the money that could be saved and rechanneled into like high impact choices. That would be amazing.
Well,
so
even
save the world.
Well, even individually, remember our last meeting we just said, all right, we're trying to go like to the gold standard. And you had said this, you're like, well, not everybody's there. So we need to go back and go, okay, good, better, best.
Yep.
Here's the research. This is what you can do. How do you implement it just to a good standard? Yep. How do you get, what's a little better? And then what's the best? And that best just keeps getting pushed, right? So, it goes back to our earlier conversation. It's never going to be perfect, because as we learn more, we're going to learn ways to, it shifts a little bit, but take it and get good, better, best. And that our last meeting, I remember, like, we're fired up. We're like, yeah, that's got to be our approach with this.
Yeah.
And it sounds just kind of like that's been the whole idea.
Breathing in diesel exhaust fumes is like walking into a fire without a mask. Protect yourself with MagnaGrip, the easiest, most reliable exhaust removal system that features a true 100% seal to eliminate diesel exhaust fumes in a snap. Visit magnagrip.com to download MagnaGrip's free grant guide with expert tips to solidify a grant for essential safety equipment, such as MagnaGrip's exhaust removal systems. That's magnagrip.com to download the free guide.
So Nerd Stock, let's talk about that a little bit, because that's kind of where we get together to talk about it. And you want to talk about innovation, the Fred talks, the who's doing this stuff right, there's so many aspects that are come together. I think Women in Fire is also pairing up with a day of presentations, which I'm super excited to be a part of as well. So let's talk a little. I call it nerd stock. You corrected me, so correct me again.
Well,
Please.
so we technically call it everyone, and apparently branding is not my skill set either, because I'm like, we'll just call it all different things. And they're like, you can't do that. I mean, technically I can do it, but it doesn't make sense to anyone else. So we have the whole conference in science to the station. We have the mornings. We originally just called it Nerd Stock, and it's basically short talks. So instead of it's a TED Talk, but a fire service research version. So Fred Talk. It's got a logo. If it has a logo, it's a thing. And it's on the website. So it's like, it's real. So we've got those short talks in each morning. So you're hearing like 15 minutes, 12 minutes, I think, people's like, what is your high level piece? And then in the afternoon, we have what's called putting it to practice sessions. So people who have done some research, partnered with the fire service, and they've actually done something with that data. And it's, we're going to have a Monday night, Tuesday night, we're going to have our mixer, our party. Should I tell you? I'll tell you what it is.
Yeah. We're going to drop some inside stuff here. I like it.
It's a circus themed party, but like the science of circus. And so like, think about all the things that you see like in a circus that have to do with like physics and all that, like all those things. So it's going to be a circus themed party. Okay. Last year we just did a science fair, and it was, I mean, I don't want to brag, but we knocked it out of the park. Like, we had so much fun. We had Mary Beth Mikos came in. She runs the FESD program at IFC, and she walks in. We had like all these fake tattoos, and I'm like, where do you want it? And she's like, put it on my neck. And I'm like, oh my God, Mary Beth, I love you. And like, and everyone had like, we had a poster session, but like more of like an informal, high school posters. So everyone put their like, here's their study. It was just phenomenal. Like, it was so cool. And the thing that I love most about it is that there's a place, Lieb always said, we did Leaves for Lieb in the morning before, where you could like go on a walk with Frank and talk about stuff. Frank always says there's a place that always a seat at the table for everyone, like the session you did. And we talked about, you leave there feeling like you found the people who understand what you're doing and the language you're trying to speak and the goals you're trying. Like, I think so often in the fire service, the health and wellness, like, it's not the sexy thing, right? Like, we're not talking strategies and tactics. We're talking about what you're eating for dinner. And so people feel, there was a friend of mine up in New York who said, I've been doing this, but it just feels very lonely. So I'm like, oh, you have just found your people. Like, yes. Come hang. And so it's all the people who are as eaten up on these topics as you are. And you just leave feeling like refreshed, like, oh my God, I'm not alone, which is awesome.
Well, and the other thing is you also leave with usable, actionable, tangible. I say that all the time, things that you can take back to your department to try. And the other thing is a contact of, hey, this department is actually doing this. Mm-hmm. And this is how this is how they're making it effective. This is how they're making it work. And I'm excited because I'm launching a couple of different things. Like, one of my research topics is power gratitude, which the more I started to dig into it, I'm like, holy cow, you want to talk about changing your brain function and rewiring your brain with some simple, exercises in the morning. We talk about, there's all kinds of stuff about like even station design, PPE. There's a lot on mental health. I was just going through the schedule a little bit. So there's something for everybody. And this isn't just someone who is also interested in research. It's, if you're a chief looking for some policies to implement, we're talking about policies within the 3 days as well. I do have to note, what would you tell someone if they're just hesitating about getting a hotel and joining? What would you,
so I would say do it soon. And mm-hmm. this is not just a sales pitch. I'll be honest. This is the other, when I say like it got, this has grown so much bigger than like what I ever expected. We put up the registration and we said like, hey, we're going to open registration May 1st. And we blocked like 100 rooms, right? In the first like 3 weeks, our room block was full. And I think we're at like 200 people registered, and our plan was 250. I think our max there is either 350 or 400, like in the hotel. So I'm not just saying that as a like, sign up now.
Yeah, no, this
I'm already in like, shit, what happens if we like, where do we put the fire dancers at that point?
Yeah, right. Well, I do think that if you're contemplating, you're listening to this, you should just sign up, because it's going to recharge you from a standpoint of you're not only going to make contacts, like you said, with like-minded people, but there are those things that I think there's so many people, and I've been very fortunate. Now we're over 130 episodes, and you saw us from our first one. I get, a lot of emails, and please keep them coming, because they help me stay recharged about what do you do when someone doesn't, when you're the only one working out, or when you're the only one reading these things. You're not the only one.
Yeah.
You're just the only one that's maybe in your area around, but they're all over the fire service. And I call us the misfits, kind of like you, like nerds, right? Like, I think there's more people that are in the fire service that want to be better than there are that don't. And it's just right. And so this is an environment where you don't have to be a member of this organization or that organization, or be a researcher or not a researcher. You can just be anybody who's interested in promoting health and wellness and science in the fire station. So that's why, and you also have a tendency to make things a little fun. Where's that come from?
I'm one of 8 kids. Like, you have to be loud. You got to do like big things. Actually, I'm not even the craziest of my siblings. So
I've met your sister.
Oh yeah, no, she's she far out creative. Like, the circus performers I know are because she's introduced me to them. But yeah, no, it's like, it is fun though, right? And like, the other thing I think that like, it's a whole conference full of just people. Like, firefighters always say, well, I'm just a firefighter, and I'm like, well, I'm just a scientist. Like, we're all just what we are. Like, so it's a bunch of people who get that. And the other thing that I think was cool, last year we had 3 people leave. No, I was not one of them, with our mascot, the nerd bird, tattooed on their body.
I was gonna say something about that, like like the people were bought into this so much, like, hey, I'm into this, like, I'm gonna get a tattoo.
I asked because Crackle Magazine is our media partner, and I asked, like, we were talking about it, and Mariah from Crackle posted this really cool thing with her new tattoo. And she said, I never realized how many people are out there working hard to make sure that I can live a longer, healthier, happier life. And that's the other thing, is I think you just don't feel alone when you leave. You I leave feeling exhausted, but I think in general, you leave feeling like, we've got this.
You're exhausted for the first week or 2 weeks, but then it recharges you to continue this mission that you're on.
You're just like mind blown. Yeah.
And I asked too, like, what's your pipe dream, at least with Science to Stations? I mean, you personally, has there been a moment that you just had to step back and smile and go, this is why I've been doing this?
Every year at the conference, I have a moment. The conference in Tucson, these women came up to me and they were talking, and they were like, we came to this conference on accident. We thought it was the Women in Fire conference. And they're like, but they said the same thing. Like, we didn't realize there were people who cared. We didn't realize that they were like, and that's it. Right. It's like every year at that conference. Last year it was at the party in the, what's it called, where everyone hangs out with the pool tables.
At NFA, at the Fire Academy. Yeah. In the canteen or the mess hall, or
there was a moment where I just sat back and I looked around and I'm like, this is it. Like, this is how you like, that's what culture change is, right? So,
well, you had mentioned too about culture change. Remember, everybody used to smoke in the fire service.
Yep.
Right. And so, and I think that was one of the quotes from our very first podcast that you were on. You said, look, if people don't think we're making progress, remember, everybody used to smoke, and we never used to talk about wearing SCBAs during overhaul. Everybody's just, hey, fire's out, SCBA's off, right? Like, that's changed. We're talking about mental health and sleep now. That has never been a topic that anybody wanted to talk about, and now it's everywhere, because it's vital to our existence and our progress within the fire service. So, I thank you, and every time I see you, there's a hug because I appreciate people like you, like Kepra, like Dr. Burgess, like Janelle, who, you don't wear the gear every single day, although I have seen you wear the gear. Yeah. Where did you do that at?
Tucson.
In Tucson. Yeah.
It's hot.
And so there are so many people that are really fighting for our health and wellness. We need to understand that. And I think sometimes we need to wake up and,
Yeah.
wear our SCBAs. We need to do the decon. We talk about sleep. So you also have something coming up on sleep. I think you guys are trying to do, you have a survey coming out. Tell me a little about that
We're
here.
getting ready to launch it. It's FEMA funded project, getting ready to launch a survey where we're trying to really get as many folks in the fire service, because we want different shift schedules, different start times. And it's a survey that asks all about sleep, but then also like other health behaviors. So we can see, people always ask like, what's the best start time? What's the best shift schedule? What's the best? We don't know, because we don't have evidence to inform that. And we don't have evidence to be able to say, like, here's the other risk factors you need to consider. Here's based on call volume, those types of things. So we're going to launch that. We're shooting for the beginning of August, and we'll put it out on Science to Station, on our socials, and then through. So coming to a listserv near you soon.
And hopefully we'll leave links, obviously, to the, when you're in the know, when you're a member of Science to Station, you just say the S2S, the S2S conference or the S2S website, which again, there's a lot of great infographics on there. What's one of your favorites that you guys have developed?
My favorite is the one that we have on reproductive health and pregnancy, because I've had so many women say, like, I didn't know what to do. And so this has all the rundown of risk for miscarriage, preterm labor, all those things. So I think highest impact is probably, that's why I love that one, because it finally gives them like a result to take to their doctor.
Well, I say the Forrest Gump approach, because it's not like you dummy things down, but you basically speak in a language that we can always understand. So those infographics are imperative. I think, if anything, if you're listening to this, go to that, do the STS. There's an infographic site, part of the site. Just download them, put them in the bathroom stalls, put them around the firehouse. They have some really great, there's just some good data sets out there that stick out. And also, we'd love to see everybody at Nerdstock, but you better register fast. Again, I'll be there. Some of the top speakers in the industry, some of the best researchers. It's a fun time. And it's just great to be in an environment. So think of all these things. Look at all the stuff you've built, right? And your family has a little connection to the fire service. And one of my last questions is, what really drove you to do this, and what continues to drive you to do this?
It really was. My dad had just had a heart attack. He was a fire chief, and he just had a heart attack around the time that the study from CDC came out. The leading cause of death was cardiovascular events on the fire ground or while on duty. So it was really that. And then just like, actually this, let me figure out which side this is something I wrote that my parents found in third grade. I wrote about being a firefighter, and it was all the same things I still write about. So like, it was firefighters can be a man or a woman. They need to be really fit. They need to be like all the things that I talk about. I did say that they make a lot of money, but that it's also like a really great job. I know I was in third grade. Like, of course it was a lot of money. So it really was like
hugs and smiles have no value. Yeah. Their value is endless. So I would say yes to that. By the way, for those that are just listening to us, if you're watching, you can watch us on YouTube. She just pointed to a little. You framed it, and it's sitting on your office wall.
I wrote in cursive.
Was it a project?
Yeah. Yep.
It was a project you did in third grade.
I just never moved on.
Well, why grow up? That's what I tell everybody, right? And is that still motivates you today? Like your family, your dad, and the fact that, you feel like maybe you are making an impact.
Well, and I think, every once in a while someone will be, and I don't they'll say like, oh, you changed my life, or you saved my life on, you talked about some screening and I got it and I got this, or like, and I don't think like, I'm not out there saving lives, but I do think that what we're doing, what we are collectively doing, is making change in the fire service. I think it is improving things. And I think people will live longer and healthier and happier lives based on the like you, me, all the other people that we talk, Lori and Brian and all the people that are doing this stuff. Like, I think we are making a difference in the world. And I think I have a very small part in it. But I think it's like an honor to be doing that, you know, to connect people, to be able to like, and I just like, I've always thought like, if you can make the world better, if you can do better, if you can make the lives better for other people, like you should. So that's my
Amen.
way to do it.
Believe in better.
Yep.
What's the real message you want, people to take away from, not only this conversation, but just kind of going forward? What's the fire service need to do or realize here?
I think just in a big, like, I think it, no, I know what it is. And it's a quote from Frank Lito. At the end of the day, the magic is us. And he talks about that in terms of peer support. He talks about that in terms of disaster response. And it's one of my favorite things that I've ever heard him say, because I do think the magic is us. And I love, obviously I'm not a firefighter, but I feel like part of the family there, and magic is us. Like, we can do this.
I got to wrap it up with the question. What are you doing personally to get better?
I took a little bit of like a hiatus. I took my daughter on a vacation, and I just kind of I took my Whoop band off, and so that was one thing I did to be better. Like, I just gave myself a little bit of a break, but now I'm feeling like I need to get back into working out. I need to, like, I'm back. I feel like I took the time off, which was actually really good. So I'm getting back into 3 to 4 days a week and doing, all the stuff like that I need to do.
What are those habits that you focus on to try to get to, like, what do you need to do to be optimized?
Got to do sleep 7 to 8 hours. I'm definitely an 8-hour person. Sleep, I do best if I work out 3 or 4 days a week. And I typically am best if I do that first thing in the morning. So those are the things. And then just dialing in food. And I get really bad about like getting lazy on drinking. I drink alcohol, but I get to the point where I'm like, oh, we're just gonna have a couple glasses of wine. Like, I gotta dial that back.
Because that can add up, especially when you're traveling and going to conferences and to dinner. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, I had alcohol 4 out of 7 nights, right?
Yeah. And like they magically refill. So I'm like, oh, I just like, they just keep showing up. So if I have it in my hand, I have to drink it. Like, no, that's not true.
Yes. No, I know them magically. I've been there for some of those events, but so that sleep, watching the nutrition, working out, you try to work out, you said 3-4 times a week. And then
three good workouts, and then some like slight I can do the other days I can walk or whatever. But
what do you do for mental health or the kind of the mental development side?
That's when I really struggle with, ironically. I do try to like connect with. I've got friends that I am really good at downloading with, but that's when I really need to work on.
Well, there's a really good session at this Nerd Stock and the Science of the Station's coming up in November on the power of gratitude. So
I will be there. I will be there. I will work on it.
Yeah. Just for those that are listening, that is what I'm presenting on. And I am a firm believer over the last couple of years about, there's now some science. There isn't now, there always has been science, but to bring that forward. So there you go. Now, next time I see you, I might just be like, hey, what are you grateful for today?
Yeah.
And
so much to be grateful for.
Yes. And as we are grateful for you and for your time and for, the words of wisdom and again, transferring all of the different things that you've learned through your research and again, just, awesome stuff. Thank you. And to those that are listening, thanks for joining us. First of all, second of all, if you have questions that we can forward on to Dr. Jahnke, bettereveryshift@firerescue1.com. Please comment, leave messages, and most importantly, get out there, learn something, do something, and share something to make you and those around you better every shift.